Yes, good morning. So we've just heard Michael Gove spelling out his scheme to house Ukrainian refugees. Is that something you support?
Well, look, we've all seen the terrible images from Ukraine and, families fleeing for the border, fleeing for their lives. And so, I do think the UK has to play its part. So far, I think the Home Office and the government's got it completely wrong. The scheme that they've put in place so far has been too slow, too narrow, too mean, and, we're where we were essentially with Afghanistan, which is only acting in the heat of the moment. Now, do I think that, where possible, people should play their part in Britain? Yes, and I'm sure that many of the British public will be incredibly generous and welcoming. What would comfort me more, frankly, is if I heard from Michael Gove that there are plans in place for the support that's actually going to be needed on arrival. I know that when I was dealing with some of the Afghan families that arrived in my own constituency during the course of the summer, what I saw there is what I think we will see in relation to Ukraine refugees, which is traumatised families desperately in need of support, desperate to know what's happening to their relatives back in Ukraine.
He seems to be suggesting...
Just hear me out on this and I'll come straight back. Needing the support in terms of schooling, work, etc.
But that's what he said. He did say that, didn't he? He said that there would be £10,000 per individual made available to local authority areas. That is the support you're talking about.
That's a good thing, but if the government was announcing now those plans in hard-edged form, I would have much more comfort in them.
In what form, sorry?
Well, local authorities are being consulted, that the advice is being set up. What I saw in the summer was...
But he's saying that the money is going to go to local authorities, £10,000 per individual.
Well, he is, but those plans just need to be in place now. So I'm not against the scheme that he is proposing. I have to say, the more you questioned him, the more I queried exactly how it's going to work. But actually, I'd have more comfort if there was a solid plan on the table. Local authority leaders are saying that they haven't been consulted yet. They are there ready to put the support in. Housing providers need to be involved in this.
So what exactly are you asking for? Because you want a concrete plan on the ground. It feels like there is a concrete plan now.
Well, I'm not sure, Sophie, about that, because what I saw in the summer was you need language experts, you need experts with traumatised families, you need experts who can help them contact their relatives back in the country they've just fled from, you need people who can sort out schooling very quickly, you need a local authority that's completely engaged in it, and you need housing providers. That can all be done, and it was done in the summer. I would just like the reassurance of knowing that plan is in place. I'm not against, where families can housing a refugee. Of course I'm not against that. But I do think the basic support needs to be put in. And I want to hear from Michael Gove that those plans are fully ready. And I'm hearing on the ground that just isn't the case across the country.
So what is Labour's proposal for refugees then? You're talking about involving local authorities, involving local housing providers. Would you like to see an uncapped number of refugees coming from Ukraine without visas to be housed here?
What I want to see is very simple, and it's a simple, safe route to sanctuary for those that are fleeing for their lives.
I mean, no one would disagree with that statement.
No, well, nobody would disagree.
That's not a concrete plan like you want the government to.
Nobody would disagree with that, but we haven't seen that in recent weeks.
But what
the government has put in place has been an embarrassment to our country.
What's the concrete plan that you would like to see then?
We want emergency protection visas, very simple, very straightforward, that could be dealt with en route on advice centres, en route to the United Kingdom, so that by the time people are here, they can come straight in the country and get the support that they need. Very simple, very straightforward, should have been thought through weeks and months ago. The likelihood of an invasion of Ukraine was known weeks ago. The Home Office have been far too slow, far too mean in relation to this. And frankly, the last few weeks have been an embarrassment for the United Kingdom in the way that it's dealt with refugees.
So would you like to see an uncapped number of these emergency visas?
Well, Sophie, I'm not going to pluck a number out the air in the middle of this conflict. We can all see what's happening in Ukraine.
No, I'm not asking for a number, I understand, but I'm just saying, would you like to see a cap on the number or would it be uncapped?
I think, look, we need to work with our allies across Europe in a coordinated way, and the UK has to play its part. I heard Michael Gove say tens of thousands. I think plucking a number is wrong. We don't know where this conflict is going to go. We all hope that it de-escalates, but we don't know that. And therefore, anybody today putting a number on it, I don't think it's being realistic.
I'm not asking for a number, I'm asking if it should be capped or not. That's quite different.
Well, no, I don't think it should be. A cap is a number.
No cap, then?
No, a cap is a number, and I'm not going to.
I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you what the number should be, but I'm asking if there should be a cap or it should be uncapped.
We should provide sanctuary to all of those that are fleeing for their lives, that want to come to the United Kingdom and play our full part. It shouldn't be capped.
It shouldn't be capped.
No.
OK, thank you. Right, we've obviously seen more. It almost feels relentless, doesn't it, the horrors that we've seen, as
Yes.
you said, coming out of Ukraine. The UK says that they're supplying defensive weapons, but the Ukrainians want to see more military weapons, fighter jets and so on. They've obviously asked for a no-fly zone. Do you think the UK needs to be doing more at this point?
We, the Labour Party and the opposition, have been supportive of the government on the in-principle stand, standing up to Russian aggression and standing up for the Ukrainian people. What Putin wants more than anything is division. He wants NATO to be divided, he wants our allies to be divided, and he wants us back here in the United Kingdom to be divided politically. We won't let that happen, because I think on an issue as important as this, we have to stand together. So where the government has provided military equipment into Ukraine, we have supported that. Where we've said the government needs to go further and faster is in relation to sanctions. Those sanctions, frankly, should have been in place before this invasion started. There was a Russia report of 2 years ago that set out all the problems and why we needed sanctions. The economic crime bill was talked about a year ago. It's only now coming on the statute book. So I want the government to go further and faster on sanctions. We will vote for those measures, by the way, but I do want the government to go further on humanitarian aid of refugees. I think the Home Office so far has got it completely wrong. I think everybody knows they've got it completely wrong, and we need to see change. So we are supportive in principle on the things that really matter. We want to push the government further and faster, where they're simply not going fast enough.
I was trying to get a sense from Michael Gove about any red lines, whether the UK response would change, particularly on the use of chemical weapons. As it feels like that is a very real fear for people. If Putin uses chemical weapons, clearly a war crime, is that a point when the military response from the UK, NATO potentially, but the UK needs to escalate?
There is always the chilling risk of escalation that none of us want to see. I think in the middle of a conflict like this, we shouldn't be speculating in the what-ifs. We have to work in lockstep with our NATO allies, responding as things develop. But at this stage, discussing what-if, I don't think is helpful in a conflict like this.
Even if it could act as a deterrent potentially, though, right?
Well, look, at the moment, we have to be absolutely clear, providing military equipment, the strongest possible sanction. And I'm talking about sanctions that don't just, isolate Russia, but cripple Russia's ability to function. That's why I want the government to go further and faster. But I think that sitting in TV studios speculating, if Putin does this, then we will do that. I don't think that's the role at the moment. That has to be something that's agreed in lockstep with our NATO allies.
Okay.
There are huge implications of any escalation, and I think we should respond as this develops. What I want to see is obviously a ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine. That is what we all want to see, and that's what the measures we're taking are designed to achieve.
Do you think there's any hope of a ceasefire? I mean, there's obviously talks going on. Are you optimistic that there could be some kind of negotiated deal coming up?
I'm not optimistic because it's very difficult to see what the basis of any agreement could be. But of course, if it is possible to achieve a ceasefire and a withdrawal by Russia, then of course, like everybody else, I would want that to happen. The shocking images, I didn't think in my lifetime I would ever see again Russian tanks rolling into a European country, soldiers kissing their children goodbye as they stay to defend their cities and their country, and families fleeing for their lives. The awful bombing of a maternity hospital. Of course, if it's possible to find a way through this, then we should all be hoping for that. But am I optimistic? No, I'm afraid not at the moment.
Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking, as you say. With your lawyer's hat on, is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
Yes.
Yes.
What I've seen already amounts to war crimes, particularly the awful attacks on civilians. And I think it's very important that he's held to account and is responsible. And all those that are acting with him know that they too will be held to account. And this is something which we need to make clear now, so that those who are involved at the moment know what the consequences are. There's a gap that we've got to plug, and that is in relation to the aggression of the invasion. That is not something that at the moment can be dealt with by international tribunals, which is why I and others have suggested that we set up a tribunal to deal with this, a bit like the Nuremberg Tribunal, so that the act of aggression itself, the aggressive invasion that's going on, is itself something for which Putin and everybody who is acting with him can be held to account for.
I want to talk to you about Lord Lebedev, the newspaper proprietor, son of a former KGB agent. We spoke to Michael Gove earlier. He said no one had raised any security concerns with him about him over the years, and that we shouldn't fall into the trap of effectively demonising people from Russia. What's your response to that?
Well, of course we shouldn't just demonise people from Russia. I completely agree with that. But that isn't the Lebedev case. The media today are saying there were further reservations by the security and intelligence services which were known before this appointment was made. And we know that concerns were raised apparently with the Prime Minister. Now, in light of the revelations today, or the further revelations today, I think the Prime Minister's got serious questions to answer. What did he know? And did he override security advice? I've already suggested that there needs to be a process here to look into this appointment. The Intelligence and Security Committee could look into it. Obviously, that's a matter for them, but there needs to be a process. But I think the Lords Appointments Commission as well, I've written to them to say, in the exceptional circumstance of this case, where there were security issues in relation to an appointment by the Prime Minister to the House of Lords, will they release the advice or the information they were giving, and will they review the appointment? Because the more that the media probe into this, the more serious the reservations, it appears, of the security and intelligence services, and the more the judgment of the Prime Minister is called into question.
The judgment of the Prime Minister called into question. What exactly are you saying that he did wrong here?
Well, that's why I want to process, because I haven't seen the materials, almost certainly confidential by their nature. But I don't think we can sit back when there were revelations that we've seen in our papers today about the security concerns in relation to Lebedev and say, oh, well, the appointment's been made, it doesn't really matter. This is a question of national security. Let us have a process to look into what actually happened. What did the Prime Minister know? And what did he do in response to that? And I think that's the least that we're entitled to in relation to this appointment.
I want to talk a little bit about what's happening here in the UK, because things are going to get, let's be frank, really difficult for people. You'll have noticed it if you filled your car up recently. With energy bills increasing, there's going to be an awful lot of people faced with that terrible choice between effectively heating their homes and eating. What's the big idea from the leader of the opposition to try and ameliorate the biggest cost of living crisis that we could have seen for decades?
Well, the first thing is this is not only caused by the invasion of Ukraine. This predates, we were in a cost of living crisis before Russia invaded Ukraine. So this has been something that's been on the cards for a very long time.
So what's the plan?
What we've said is do something now to deal with the energy bills that people are facing. As everybody knows, most people are going to face an energy bill rise of about £700 in just a few weeks' time. And now, with what's happened internationally, there's likely to be another £1,000 or so in the autumn. So we, the Labour Party, have said, take action. What we would do is have a windfall tax on the oil and gas companies in the North Sea who have made more profit than they expected because of the global prices.
And you just trust them to pass it on then to consumers?
More, in their own words, more money than they know what to do with. Use that to reduce the energy bills for households by up to £600 for those particularly in need. So a very direct act that we would do. The government says, no, we don't want to ask any more of the oil and gas companies. We will ask working families and families to do it instead. We'll give them a loan.
Is there not a worry, though,
We'll give them a loan of £200, which they will then pay back over the next few years. So the political divide here is huge. We say oil and gas companies have to pay their part, particularly when they've had profits they didn't expect. The government says we're going to hammer working families.
But at the same time, is there not a concern, firstly, that this windfall tax will not necessarily be passed on to consumers, but also that it could almost act as a disincentive
but Sophie, that argument...
to invest more in oil out of the North Sea at a time when we are facing big questions about our energy security in the UK?
These are windfall taxes. These are taxes on profits that those companies did not expect to make. The global price has been higher than they had anticipated, therefore they've made more profit than they anticipated. They have said, they've used expressions such as, we've got more money than we know what to do with. The argument the government has, well, we won't touch that. Instead, we'll ask families to foot the bill by having a loan that they don't want and paying it off, it just shows the complete difference in priorities of the Labour Party that wants to look after families who've got energy bills they can't afford, and the government that's putting even more pressure on those families.
Boris Johnson reportedly going to Saudi Arabia next week to talk about getting oil potentially more or potentially from there. There's obviously big human rights concerns about Saudi Arabia. Are you comfortable with us relying more on Saudi Arabia for our energy if we're trying to stop the use of Russian oil?
If I were the Prime Minister, I would have an energy strategy here in the UK.
I just want to get a clear answer.
Well, there are human rights. Of course, there's human rights issues in relation to Saudi Arabia.
The direct question is, should we be accepting more oil from Saudi Arabia?
We need an energy security strategy for the UK.
So I'm really not clear still. I'm really just answering.
Just hear me out, and then we need an energy strategy for the UK that's been lacking for 10 years. What I would like to see is an energy strategy that's based on the UK, not so reliant on other countries, Saudi Arabia or other countries. One of the things we've learned in the last few years, and particularly in the last few weeks and months, is over-reliance on international imports is a mistake.
Energy now, aren't we? Should we be looking to get more energy from Saudi Arabia right now? Is it acceptable or not?
If there's anything that could be done to bring the price down now, then all... So, well, you say OK. The problem with energy strategy is we've always done the short term over the last 12 years, and we are where we are. We need to have a strategy that, fast forwards on nuclear, doubles our wind capability onshore, increases it offshore, develops hydrogen, and actually has a plan to insulate our homes to bring the whole price of energy in. I want an energy strategy which is secure and makes us less reliant on what happens abroad. And therefore, if this is a short-term measure to bring down prices, well, that's one thing. If it is a long-term strategy to make us dependent on Saudi Arabia instead of Russia, then I would take a fundamentally different approach.
OK, that makes sense. Now, talking about sanctions, which you have done before, Chelsea Football Club obviously been hit by these crippling sanctions because of their owner, Roman Abramovich. They're not even allowed to sell tickets. Today, they are playing Newcastle United, who have obviously been owned by a group led by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. You're a football fan yourself. Do you think this should be a watershed moment for football to look at how it's funded?
Yes, I think that moment has passed. We've had a review. Tracy Crouch, a Conservative MP who's respected across the House, has carried out that review. And I think the government now needs to act on it. So, yes, this is in very sharp focus now. But actually, the need to look again at governance in football has been there for a very long time now. OK,
very quick question. I just thought you might better clear up. There's something some people were slightly confused about whether you're still calling for the Prime Minister to resign at the minute or because of Ukraine you've withdrawn that call. What is the position on that? Do you think Boris Johnson should resign?
I haven't changed my mind on Boris Johnson. I think he's lost the moral authority to lead. I don't think he's fit to be our Prime Minister. I can't force him to resign. Only Tory MPs can do that. But I have to say that just at the moment, my total focus is on the Ukraine and what we have to do in response to the Russian aggression there. And I think everybody would understand why my focus is on that vital issue just at the moment.
Yeah, of course. Keir Starmer, Labour leader, thank you very much for coming on the programme today. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.